The champagne flute tilted. Park Ye-jun felt his fingers lose their grip. Crystal shattering against white marble, the sound too loud, too sharp in the suddenly silent room. 200 of Seoul's most dangerous men and women watched him sway. His vision fractured into kaleidoscope pieces. The 32nd floor penthouse of the Blue Dragon spun violently. Then his knees buckled. He went down hard. His shoulder cracked against the edge of the presentation table where 3 Busan Syndicate heads had been seated seconds ago. Expensive Italian marble rushed up to meet his face. His designer glasses skittered across the floor. The Rolex on his wrist clicked against stone. Voices erupted around him. Korean. Mandarin. English. Russian. His body convulsed, violent, uncontrollable spasms that made his muscles scream. Foam gathered at the corner of his mouth. His mind stayed razor-sharp, which made the terror worse. He could hear everything but couldn't speak. Couldn't warn them. Couldn't tell them this wasn't a stroke or a heart attack. This was murder. Someone call an ambulance. That was Dae-ho, his head of security. Voice cracking with something that might have been fear. Bodyguards flooded in from every entrance, weapons drawn, scanning for threats. But there was no gunman. No knife. Just their boss dying on the floor in front of 200 witnesses. The Busan representatives backed toward the exit. A deal going catastrophically wrong. A power vacuum opening in real time. Dangerous opportunities. In the corner of his failing vision, Ye-jun saw her. Chung Ae. His fiancée of 8 months. She stood frozen in her white Valentino engagement dress, hands pressed to her perfect face, diamond ring catching the light. She looked horrified. But she wasn't moving. She wasn't coming to him. Then a new voice sliced through the chaos. Female. Calm. Absolute command. Everyone move back. Now. Strong hands rolled him onto his side with practiced precision. Checked his airway with 2 fingers against his throat. His vision swam, but he caught a glimpse, a black woman in a dark service uniform, long braids pulled back, kneeling beside him in heels that should have made her clumsy but didn't. He's not choking. Airways clear. This is systemic toxicity. Her voice carried the kind of authority that came from training, from crisis, from seeing worse and surviving it. She pulled a small pen light from somewhere, flashed it across his eyes. Pupils massively dilated. Excessive salivation. Muscle fasciculations in the extremities. Who the hell are you? Dae-ho demanded, weapon still in hand, torn between protecting his boss and shooting the stranger touching him. Heather Roth. I'm a waitress here. I also happen to be a combat medic, 101st Airborne. Her accent was American, her hands were steady. Does he have a pre-existing heart condition? No. Nothing. He's been tired lately, losing some weight, but... Losing weight? The woman's hand stilled for half a second on his chest. Right over the dragon tattoo that covered his heart. Digestive issues? Tremors? Hair thinning? Silence. Then Chung Ae's voice, too high, too careful, maybe. A little. Why? The waitress, the medic. Didn't answer immediately. Her eyes scanned Ye-jun's face, his convulsing muscles, the foam at his lips. Something shifted in her expression. Recognition. And beneath it, cold fury. I need activated charcoal. Now. And someone call emergency services, tell them suspected acute heavy metal poisoning, possibly arsenic or thallium. Tell them to bring chelation agents and gastric lavage equipment. Poisoning? Daeho's voice dropped to something lethal. Who? Later. Right now, keeping him alive is the priority. She positioned Ye-jun's head carefully, preventing aspiration. She pointed at a server frozen near the door. Kitchen. Activated charcoal is in the medical kit by the main prep station. Go. The young woman ran. Heather's hands moved across Ye-jun's torso, checking pulse points, assessing damage with the kind of speed that only came from doing this under fire. She murmured, low enough that maybe only he could hear through the ringing in his ears, "Stay with me. Don't you let them win. Not like this." Them? Through the haze of toxins shutting down his nervous system, Ye-jun tried to focus on her face. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't performing shock or grief like everyone else. She was working. And she knew exactly what was killing him. The server returned with the medical kit. Heather's fingers flew over the supplies, extracting what she needed. She mixed activated charcoal with water in a plastic cup, her movements economical and precise. "This is going to be unpleasant, but I need you to swallow as much as you can." She supported his head, brought the cup to his lips. "You're not giving him anything." Chung Ae finally moved, stepping forward in her designer heels, her voice sharp with something that wasn't quite concern. "We don't know what that is. We don't know you. For all we know, you're the one who. If I poisoned him, why would I be trying to save him?" Heather didn't even look up. "And if you're worried about what I'm doing, you're welcome to explain to everyone here why his fiancée is more concerned with questioning me than calling for help." The room went very, very quiet. Chung Ae's face flushed. "How dare you?" "I dare because he's dying, and you've been standing there for 90 seconds without doing a single useful thing." Heather's eyes finally lifted, meeting Chung Ae's. There was something dangerous in that gaze. Something that knew more than it should. "Now you can either help or get out of my way." In the background, Ye-jun saw Min-jun, his second-in-command, his trusted lieutenant for 8 years, place a hand on Chung Ae's arm. Gentle. Familiar. Too familiar. And Chung Ae let him. Heather saw it too. Ye-jun watched her eyes track the gesture, catalog it, file it away. Then she returned her attention to keeping him alive, getting charcoal into his system, monitoring his vitals with 2 fingers on his carotid. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Ambulance is 3 minutes out," Daeho reported, phone still pressed to his ear. "He'll make it." Heather's voice was certain. "The chelation therapy will take time, but he'll survive this. This. Not it. This specific poisoning. This calculated murder attempt." Like she'd seen it before. Like she'd been expecting it. Through the fog of toxins and failing neural pathways, Park Ye-jun realized something that should have been impossible. A stranger in a waitress uniform knew more about what was happening to him than his fiancée of 8 months. A stranger who happened to have military medical training. A stranger who happened to be in the room when he collapsed. A stranger who happened to know exactly what poison was killing him, and exactly how to slow it down. The paramedics burst through the doors, equipment clattering. Heather briefed them in rapid Korean: symptoms, timeline, suspected toxin, interventions already administered. They looked at her with respect bordering on surprise. "You kept him stable. Another 5 minutes and we'd be looking at permanent neurological damage." As they loaded Ye-jun onto the stretcher, as Chung Ae climbed into the ambulance playing the devastated fiancé, As Min-jun assured everyone he'd handle business operations, Ye-jun caught one last glimpse of the waitress. She was watching Chung-ae and Min-jun. And her expression said she knew exactly what they'd done. The only question was, why was a waitress at the Blue Dragon the only person in a room full of Korea's criminal elite who was actually trying to keep him alive? And why did his fiancée look more afraid of the waitress than of him dying? Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. Heather Roth had perfected the art of being invisible. 3 months working at the Blue Dragon had taught her exactly how to move through a room full of Korea's wealthiest criminals without drawing a single glance. Keep your eyes down but not submissive. Smile politely but not invitingly. Pour champagne with efficient grace and disappear before anyone registered your existence. Tonight, she was just another server in a navy uniform and heels that pinched her toes, circulating through the 32nd floor penthouse with a tray of cristal. The engagement party was in full swing, 200 guests in designer suits and couture gowns, celebrating the union of Park Ye-jun and Chung-ae. A merger of territories disguised as romance. Heather knew about disguises. She'd come to Seoul 6 months ago with forged documentation and a carefully constructed background story, running from a dishonorable discharge and a military incident that haunted her sleep. Korea had seemed far enough away from Afghanistan, far enough from the accusations and the court-martial proceedings. Far enough to disappear. But tonight, watching Park Ye-jun hold court in the center of the room, something felt wrong. She'd observed him during her shifts. The way he commanded space without raising his voice, how his lieutenants leaned in when he spoke, the respect that bordered on fear in every interaction. He was powerful, ruthless, and according to club gossip, building an empire that made rival organizations nervous. But tonight he looked off. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the climate-controlled room. His hand trembled slightly when he accepted a fresh glass of champagne. Once, she saw him grip the edge of a table as if steadying himself. Nobody else seemed to notice. They were too busy admiring Chung-ae in her white Valentino dress, too focused on the political implications of this marriage, too deep in their own calculations about shifting power dynamics. Heather noticed because noticing kept you alive in combat zones. And because something in her medic's instinct screamed that this man was sick. She was refilling glasses near the main presentation area when Ye-jun stepped forward to give his toast. The room fell silent. He raised a champagne flute, began speaking in Korean about unity and strength and the future they would build together. Mid-sentence, his hand trembled. The glass tilted. Crystal shattered against marble. And Park Ye-jun went down. Heather's tray hit a side table before conscious thought caught up with training. Her body moved on pure instinct. The same instinct that had kept soldiers alive under fire in Kandahar. She was running before the crowd started screaming, reaching him before his bodyguards processed what was happening, dropping to her knees beside him while everyone else stood frozen. His body convulsed violently. Foam gathered at his lips. His designer glasses skittered across the floor. The dragon tattoos covering his exposed torso seemed to writhe with each spasm. "I'm a medic. Let me help him." Her voice cut through the rising panic with the kind of authority that came from saving lives while mortars fell. Her hands moved automatically, checking his airway first, then pulse. Weak and racing. His breathing was shallow, labored. She pulled out her penlight, checked his pupils. Massively dilated, barely reactive. Anticholinergic poisoning. Heavy metal toxicity. She'd seen it once before in a village elder in Afghanistan who'd been slowly poisoned by a rival faction. "Someone get me water and a clean cloth," she shouted, rolling Ye-jun into recovery position to prevent aspiration. "You, call emergency services. Tell them suspected heavy metal poisoning, possibly arsenic. You, clear this space now." People obeyed. Maybe because her competence demanded it, maybe because nobody else knew what to do. Servers scrambled. Bodyguards backed up, weapons drawn but no target in sight. Guests pressed against the walls, some filming on phones, others calling their own contacts. And through it all, Chung Ae stood frozen. The fiancée finally moved, tottering forward on her stilettos, perfect makeup starting to run with tears that didn't quite reach her eyes. What's wrong with him? What's happening? Heather kept working, monitoring his breathing, preventing him from choking on his own saliva, calculating how much time they had before organ failure became irreversible. But part of her mind catalogued everything about Chung Ae's approach. The woman was asking questions but not touching him. Not cradling his head. Not trying to comfort. Not helping. "He's been poisoned," Heather said, eyes never leaving Ye-jun's face. "Has he been sick lately? Losing weight? Digestive issues?" Something flickered across Chung Ae's perfect features. Recognition? Fear? Guilt? It passed too quickly to name, replaced by carefully practiced concern. "No, nothing. He's been fine. Perfectly healthy." That was a lie. Heather knew it in her bones the same way she'd known when soldiers lied about pain levels or infection symptoms. A shadow fell across them. Heather looked up into the scarred face of Dae-ho, Ye-jun's head of security. He was massive, easily 6'3", hands that looked like they'd broken bones and faces. His weapon was drawn, pointed at the floor but ready. "Who are you?" His voice was gravel and threat. "How do we know you didn't poison him?" Heather didn't flinch. She'd had Taliban fighters point AK-47s at her while she worked on wounded civilians. A bodyguard with a handgun wasn't going to make her hands shake. "If I poisoned him, why would I be trying to save him?" She met his eyes directly. "And if I'm wrong about what I'm doing, you can shoot me after he survives. But right now, let me work." For a long moment, Dae-ho stared at her. Combat veteran recognizing another warrior. Someone who'd seen violence and death and learned to function through it. He lowered his weapon. "Do what you need to do." The server she'd sent to the kitchen returned with the medical kit. Heather's fingers flew over the supplies, extracting activated charcoal, mixing it with water in a plastic cup. It was basic, not nearly enough for full treatment, but it might buy them time. "This is going to be unpleasant, but I need you to swallow as much as you can." She supported Ye-jun's head, brought the cup to his lips. His convulsions had subsided to tremors, but he was barely conscious. She could hear sirens now, growing closer. Seoul Private Medical had dispatch times under 4 minutes for the right clients. Park Ye-jun was definitely the right kind of client. When the paramedics burst through the doors, Heather briefed them in her limited Korean, 3 months of language lessons compressed into rapid-fire medical terminology. Symptoms, timeline, suspected toxin, interventions already administered. One of the paramedics looked at her with something like respect. "You kept him stable. Another 5 minutes and we'd be looking at permanent neurological damage." They loaded Ye-jun onto the stretcher with practiced efficiency. Chung Ae climbed into the ambulance, every inch the devastated fiancée, her white dress stark against the vehicle's red interior. As the ambulance doors started to close, Heather saw it. Chung Ae's eyes tracked across the crowd, found Min-jun, Ye-jun's second-in-command, his trusted lieutenant. Their gazes locked for just a second. Too knowing. Too calculated. A look that communicated something beyond concern for a dying boss. A look that said, "Did we account for this? Is the plan compromised?" Min-jun's slight nod was almost imperceptible. "Stay calm. We adjust." Then the door slammed shut and the ambulance screamed into Seoul traffic. Heather stood in the chaos of the emptying penthouse, champagne soaking into expensive carpet, crystal shards glittering like diamonds in the recessed lighting. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline crash hitting her system. She'd just saved a man's life. And she was pretty sure she'd just witnessed his murderers exchange confirmation signals. She wasn't letting this go. Underscore 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 underscore. Seoul Private Medical Center occupied a gleaming tower in Gangnam, the kind of hospital where privacy cost more than treatment and every floor had private security. Heather tried to follow the ambulance, only to be stopped by a guard at the VIP entrance. Family only. No exceptions. Her Korean wasn't good enough to argue effectively, and her waitress uniform marked her as service class, invisible again, but in the wrong way. "She's with me." The voice came from behind her, smooth and commanding with a Southern American accent that felt like home. Heather turned to find Melvina J. Foreman, the Blue Dragon's general manager, striding through the entrance with the kind of authority that made security guards step aside. She saved Mr. Park's life. He would want her here. The guard hesitated, then nodded. Melvina's influence in Ye-jun's organization apparently extended beyond club operations. Inside, the hospital smelled like money and antiseptic. Melvina guided Heather through corridors decorated more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility, past private suites where Seoul's elite received treatment they'd never report to insurance companies. In a quiet waiting room, Melvina pulled Heather aside. "You saw it too, didn't you?" Her voice was low, careful. "That look between the fiancé and Min-jun?" Heather's stomach dropped. "Who are you really? You're not just a club manager." Melvina's smile was sad and knowing. "Retired Army intelligence, 20 years. I recognized you when you applied 3 months ago, Specialist Heather Roth, 101st Airborne, dishonorably discharged after the Kandahar incident." The floor seemed to tilt. "Are you going to turn me in?" "No." Melvina's hand was warm on Heather's shoulder. "I hired you because I suspected someone was trying to kill Mr. Park. Needed someone with medical training who wasn't part of this world. Someone invisible. You've been watching him. For 3 months. I've worked for Ye-jun for 5 years, managing his legitimate business fronts. He's ruthless, but he's been good to people who work for him. 3 months ago, I noticed he was declining, losing weight, occasional tremors, digestive issues he dismissed as stress." Melvina's expression hardened. "In this world, when someone gets engaged, you watch for the knife in the back. I suspected poisoning. I just didn't expect it to be this soon or this blatant." Before Heather could respond, the door opened. A woman in her 40s entered, elegant in silk blouse and tailored slacks, with the kind of calm competence that marked someone who'd seen everything. "Dr. Coa," Melvina said. "What's his condition?" The doctor's eyes moved to Heather with interest. "You're the waitress who intervened?" "Former combat medic." "Good instincts." "He's stable for now." We're running full toxicology, but preliminary results show arsenic administered over an extended period. Months of gradual poisoning. Months. While he got engaged. While he planned a wedding. While his fiancée smiled and played the perfect partner. The intervention you provided prevented seizure-related brain damage, Dr. Sioa continued. Mr. Park has asked to see you when he wakes. Both of you. In the corner, Chung Ae stood with her phone, speaking softly in Korean. When Dr. Sioa mentioned Ye-jun wanting to see Heather, something flashed across the woman's face. Anger, quickly masked. She doesn't want him talking to me, Heather realized. She's afraid of what he might figure out. Hours later, after Chung Ae had left to get rest and most of the bodyguards had been reassigned to secure the hospital perimeter, Heather sat in a chair by Ye-jun's window. The private suite overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. A city that never quite slept, much like the criminal empire that thrived in its shadows. She should have left. Should have gone home to her tiny apartment in Itaewon and tried to sleep before her next shift. But something kept her rooted in that chair, watching machines beep softly, monitoring the rise and fall of Ye-jun's chest. Someone had tried to kill him. And that someone had access, opportunity, and motive strong enough to plan a murder over months. His voice startled her. Why is my waitress in my hospital room? Ye-jun's eyes were open, still unfocused but aware. His hand moved slightly, for line tugging. Because your fiancé left an hour ago to get rest, and someone needs to make sure nobody finishes what they started. His gaze sharpened, really seeing her for the first time. Not as part of the scenery or a server with a champagne tray. As a person who'd just said something very dangerous. You think someone will try again? I know they will. Heather leaned forward. And I know who. Silence stretched between them. Machines beeped. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse laughed at something a colleague said. Normal sounds in a moment that was anything but normal. Tell me. So she did. The look between Chung Ae and Min-jun. The fiancé's strange non-reaction while her future husband convulsed on the floor. The careful performance of grief that never quite reached genuine emotion. How long have you been engaged? 8 months. The wedding is in 4 weeks. How long have you been sick? Ye-jun went very still. She watched understanding dawn across his features, sharp intelligence that had built a criminal empire now turning inward to analyze his own declining health. 6 months. Maybe more. Your fiancé is poisoning you. And your second-in-command is helping her. That's impossible. But his voice lacked conviction. Chung Ae's family and mine, this marriage unites our territories. She has no motive. Unless she wants your territory without you. Unless the plan is to be the grieving widow who inherits everything. Min-jun has been with me for 8 years. He's loyal. Or he's been waiting 8 years for the right opportunity. Heather held his gaze. Did the engagement happen before or after they got close? Ye-jun's silence was answer enough. Heather saw him remember, Min-jun suggesting the marriage. Min-jun saying it was strategic, necessary. Min-jun orchestrating meetings with the Chung family. I don't know your world, Heather said quietly. But I know poisoning. And I know betrayal. Someone is killing you slowly. And your fiancé isn't acting like someone who wants you to survive. Ye-jun recovered faster than his doctors expected, though he remained hospitalized under the guise of observation. Really, he was using the time to plan. And Heather was his unlikely partner in conspiracy. If you're right, I need proof, he'd said that first night. In my world, accusations without evidence mean war. The kind that destroys families and territories. Then we get evidence. But you have to pretend you don't suspect anything. It was an unlikely alliance, a Korean mafia boss and a black American waitress with a forged identity. But Heather had advantages Ye-jun's people didn't. She was invisible. Servants, cleaning staff, kitchen workers, they talked to her because she was one of them. She returned to work at the Blue Dragon 2 days after the poisoning, playing the role of concerned waitress, grateful the boss survived. The staff whispered about it, how she'd saved Park Ye-jun's life, how he'd asked to see her personally. It gave her a strange kind of status, just enough to ask questions without raising suspicion. Chung Ae visited the club regularly, meeting with Min-jun in the private dining room to discuss business continuity while Ye-jun recovered. Heather volunteered to serve them, invisible again in her uniform. They spoke in a mixture of Korean and English, switching languages mid-sentence. Heather's Korean wasn't fluent, but she caught fragments. Too close. The waitress. Need to be more careful. When they mentioned the American problem, they said it in English. They were worried about her. About what she'd seen, what she suspected. Good. Ye-jun was young, maybe 22, working 3 jobs to send money home to her family in Busan. One of those jobs was cleaning Chung Ae's Gangnam penthouse twice a week. Heather befriended her over coffee during a break, listening to her talk about her problems, her dreams of going back to school. It took 2 weeks before she felt comfortable enough to ask. What's she like? Miss Chung? Ye-jun's expression became carefully neutral. Very particular. Never lets us in her bedroom or private office. Checks everything twice. Once, another girl moved a picture frame slightly and Miss Chung knew immediately. That's where people keep secrets, Heather murmured, more to herself than Ye-jun. She convinced Ye-jun to let her substitute on a cleaning shift. Just once. Said she needed the extra money, and Ye-jun needed a day off. Chung Ae's penthouse was everything Heather expected, immaculate, cold, expensive. Modern furniture in whites and grays. Abstract art on the walls. Everything positioned with geometric precision. A showplace, not a home. The private office was locked. Heather picked it with a bobby pin, military training coming back like muscle memory. The desk drawer held receipts for arsenic trioxide from a chemical supply company. Purchase dates aligned perfectly with when Ye-jun's symptoms began, 6 months ago, right after the engagement announcement. Deeper in the drawer. A burner phone with messages to M. Timeline discussions. Inheritance procedures. Post-acquisition restructuring plans. They were discussing Ye-jun's empire like it was already theirs. Heather photographed everything with her phone, hand steady despite her racing pulse. Nobby had worked in the Blue Dragon's kitchen for 20 years. She knew which guests wanted their steak rare and which politicians needed their drinks watered down. She noticed everything. Including Chung Ae's regular deliveries of special vitamins for Mr. Park. She says they're for his stress and energy, Nobby told Heather during a quiet moment in the prep kitchen. Expensive supplements. She's very particular about them, brings them herself, makes sure they get to his office. She showed Heather the bottles, amber glass, professional labels, sealed caps. They looked completely legitimate. Heather pocketed 1 bottle during her break. Jose worked at Seoul National University Hospital now, but he'd been a combat medic with the 82nd Airborne. They'd crossed paths during a joint operation in Afghanistan. He was one of the few people from her old life who still answered her calls. He tested the vitamins without asking questions. Heather, these aren't vitamins. There's arsenic trioxide in here. His voice was tight with anger. Not a lot per pill, but over time. Over time it would look like natural illness. Exactly. Organ failure, stress-related disease. If he takes these daily. Jose trailed off. He'd be dead in another month, maybe 2. This is a perfect murder. Heather closed her eyes. Thanks, Jose. I owe you. You saved my life in Kandahar. We're even. But Heather, be careful. Whoever did this is smart and patient. That makes them dangerous. After work one night, Heather followed Min-jun. He left the Blue Dragon around midnight, drove across Seoul to the Four Seasons in Gwanghwamun. Not to the main entrance, to the private tower reserved for long-term luxury residences. Chung Ae met him in the lobby. No pretense, no caution. She was wearing casual clothes, hair down, the cold perfection she showed the world completely gone. When she saw him, her face lit up with something real. Through the tower's glass walls, Heather photographed them together. The way Chung Ae's hand traced Min-jun's jaw. The way he pulled her close, kissed her like they'd been apart for years instead of hours. The way she laughed, genuinely laughed, in a way she never did with Ye-jun. This was real for them. The engagement was the performance. The poisoning was business. But what they had together, that was love. Twisted, murderous, ambitious love, but love nonetheless. Late one night, evidence folders spread across Ye-jun's hospital table. Heather let her guard slip. Let herself remember Afghanistan. The medical evacuation that went wrong. The civilian caught in crossfire. The Korean-American soldier whose testimony blamed her for decisions she'd never made. She'd fled here to escape that. Used forged documents, a fake background, became invisible rather than face court-martial. But if Ye-jun's organization dug into her past, and they would, once she became more than a waitress who'd been in the right place at the right time, they'd find her secrets. She was committed now. Couldn't walk away even if she wanted to. The door opened. Heather looked up, expecting Ye-jun to wake. Instead, she found him watching her, fully conscious. Why are you doing this? His voice was soft. You're a waitress. This isn't your fight. Because you were dying and nobody else cared enough to save you. She met his eyes. Because nobody deserves to be murdered by the people they trust. Something shifted in his expression. For just a moment, the ruthless Mafia boss disappeared, replaced by a man who'd just been told he was worth saving. Tell me about the evidence. So she did. Heather visited Ye-jun every day after her evening shift, bringing evidence piece by piece like offerings. The vitamin analysis. The photographs of Min-jun and Chung Ae together. The financial records Melvina had obtained through her intelligence contacts showing the Chung family's failing empire. The private suite became their war room. Planning. Strategizing. Building a case that would hold up not in any court of law, but in the brutal tribunal of Seoul's criminal underworld. Their dynamic shifted. Initial suspicion became respect. Respect became something more complicated. Why are you doing this? Ye-jun asked one night, watching her annotate a timeline on his tablet. You're a waitress. This isn't your fight. Heather looked up from the evidence. Because you were dying and nobody else cared enough to save you. Because nobody deserves to be murdered by the people they trust. His hand caught hers. You're not just a waitress. No. She didn't pull away. I'm not. She told him parts of it, the military service, the combat medicine, coming to Korea for a fresh start. She didn't mention the dishonorable discharge or the incident that still haunted her. Some secrets needed more trust than they'd built. Ye-jun shared his own darkness. His younger sister Nabi, killed by a rival gang when she was 19 and trying to leave a criminal life. I became what I am because I failed to protect the only person who mattered. His fingers traced the dragon tattoo over his heart. This, all of it, is memorial to her. Every territory I took was revenge for her death. Heather saw the grief he carried, understood suddenly why he'd built walls so high and sharp. So you made sure nobody could ever matter again. Until a stranger saved my life and showed me that power means nothing if everyone around you is planning your funeral. Dae-ho confronted Heather in the hospital corridor 3 days later. You don't belong here. His voice was low, careful. Not quite a threat. You're American, black, working class. Whatever you think is happening between you and the boss, it can't work. His world will eat you alive. Heather straightened to her full height. Still 6 inches shorter than Dae-ho, but she'd stared down men who thought they could intimidate her. I'm not trying to belong. I'm trying to keep him alive. And when this is over? When the conspiracy is exposed and his enemies are dealt with? Dae-ho's expression softened slightly. You can't stay in his world. And he can't leave it. Then we'll figure it out. But right now, he has 2 people trying to kill him and an organization full of people who might be loyal or might be waiting for the right moment to turn. So unless you're here to help, get out of my way. Something like approval flickered in Dae-ho's eyes. He stepped aside. Ye-jun recovered physically but remained hospitalized, using the time to let Chung Ae and Min-jun think they were winning. Each day, Heather watched him transform. Watched him question everything he'd built. In your world, loyalty is bought with fear, she said one night, late, when he couldn't sleep. In mine, it's earned with respect. Which one kept you alive? He was quiet for a long time. You did. A stranger who had no reason to care. I had every reason. You're a person. You were dying. That's reason enough. Most people don't think that way. Especially not about men like me. Maybe you need to surround yourself with different people. She watched him process that. Watched him realize that a stranger had shown more loyalty in one night than his fiancée in 8 months. Then his trusted lieutenant in 8 years. For the first time, Park Ye-jun wondered if there was another way to live. Late one night, after Heather had spent 14 hours between her shift at the club and investigating the conspiracy, she dozed in the chair beside his bed. Exhaustion finally overcame vigilance. Ye-jun woke and watched her sleep. In rest, she looked younger, vulnerable. The combat-hardened medic became just a woman who'd taken on a burden she didn't have to carry. Beautiful. Brave. Loyal in a way he'd thought didn't exist. She woke suddenly, military instincts never fully off, and caught him staring. What? I'm trying to figure out why a stranger cares more about keeping me alive than anyone I've known for years. Heather stood, moved closer to the bed. Maybe because I see the man, not the monster. Maybe because everyone deserves someone in their corner. The air between them charged with something neither had expected. Attraction. Connection. The kind of recognition that happened when 2 people from different worlds somehow understood each other perfectly. Ye-jun reached for her hand. Heather let him take it, their fingers intertwining. They leaned toward each other, the space between them shrinking. The door opened. Chung Ae stood in the entrance, immaculate in a cream designer suit, her eyes taking in the scene. Heather and Ye-jun, hands clasped, the intimacy obvious. Her expression cycled through surprise, anger, fear, and finally landed on carefully controlled concern. "Darling, I brought you breakfast." Her voice was honey and poison. "I didn't realize you had company." Heather stepped back, playing her role. "I was just checking on Mr. Park, Miss Chung. Wanted to make sure he was comfortable." But something had shifted. Something irrevocable. And all three of them knew it. Melvina dropped the financial records on Ye-jun's hospital table like a bomb. "The Chung family is finished. Bad investments, lost territories, failed operations. They're bleeding money and respect." She pointed to highlighted sections. This marriage wasn't meant to merge families. It was meant to be a hostile takeover disguised as romance. Ye-jun studied the numbers with the focus of someone who'd built an empire on careful analysis. "They wanted me dead shortly after the wedding. Chung Ae inherits as the widow, absorbs my organization under her family's control." "And Min-jun?" Heather asked. "Promised head of operations under the new regime." Melvina pulled up another file. "Chung Ae's father, Chung Jae-sung, approached him a year ago. Offered him power and the old man's beautiful daughter. Min-jun, ambitious and resentful of always being second, agreed." The timeline made brutal sense. They'd cultivated the romance. Suggested the strategic marriage to Ye-jun. Began poisoning him the moment the engagement was announced. Death would come shortly after the wedding, maximizing inheritance claims while minimizing suspicion. "It's not just them," Melvina continued grimly. "We've identified 3 others in the club who are part of it. Karen the bartender mixed poison into your drinks. Marion the bookkeeper manipulated financial records to show Chung Ae as partial owner. Lamar and security provided blind spots for their meetings." Ye-jun's expression went cold. "How deep does this go?" "Deep enough that we need to assume anyone in close contact with you could be compromised." Melvina looked at Heather. "Which is why they're worried about her. She's outside their network. Unpredictable." As if summoned by their paranoia, Heather noticed him the next evening, a Korean-American man watching her too closely as she left her shift. She'd seen him before at the club, always in the VIP sections, always with Seoul's wealthy elite. He followed her 3 blocks before confronting her outside a convenience store. "Specialist Roth." His voice made her blood run cold. "Didn't expect to find you in Seoul." Heather turned slowly, cataloging escape routes, calculating distances. "Do I know you?" "Mark Cho. My brother served with you in Afghanistan." His smile was bitter. "You cost him his career. Cost my family our reputation. Now you're here, hiding behind a fake identity, pretending to be nobody." The Kandahar incident. The false testimony. The court-martial that had followed her across the ocean. "What do you want?" "For you to disappear. Again." Mark stepped closer. "I have connections in Seoul. 1 phone call and I expose you to Park Ye-jun's organization. Another call and Korean immigration deports you. Your choice." Heather met his eyes. "Do what you need to do. But I'm not running anymore." She walked away, heart pounding, knowing she'd just made everything infinitely more complicated. If she ran now, Ye-jun died. If she stayed, her past could destroy whatever future she'd started to imagine. She had to see this through. underscore 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 underscore. Back in Ye-jun's suite, she found him planning with Melvina and Dae-ho. "We need them to confess," Ye-jun said. "On recording. Admitting the poisoning, the plan, all of it." "They're too careful," Dae-ho argued. "They'll never talk openly." "They will if they think they've won." Heather moved to the table, studying their notes. "Use your release from the hospital as bait. Celebrate your recovery with a private dinner. You, Chung-ae, Min-jun, discuss wedding plans, discuss your will, make them think everything is proceeding as planned." "And you?" Ye-jun looked at her. "I'll be serving." "Invisible again. But wearing a wire." She glanced at Melvina. "You still have intelligence contacts?" "I can get us recording equipment that won't be detected by standard sweeps." Melvina's expression was troubled. "But Heather, if they suspect anything." "They'll kill me." "I know." She looked at Ye-jun, "But this is the only way to expose them without starting a war. You need their confession recorded, undeniable." Ye-jun's jaw tightened. "If anything goes wrong?" "Then I go wrong knowing I tried to do something that mattered. Stop trying to protect me." Heather held his gaze. "Let me protect you for once." In the silence that followed, she knew they'd crossed another line. From alliance to partnership. From helping to caring. From safety to something far more dangerous. After 2 weeks, Ye-jun was released from Seoul Private Medical Center. He moved carefully, still weak but hiding it with the kind of performance that had kept him alive in the criminal underworld for 15 years. To his organization, he announced the official story with perfect dismissiveness. Misdiagnosis. Severe food poisoning, not actual poisoning. Doctors are idiots who seek conspiracies and contaminated shellfish. The lie worked exactly as intended. Heather watched Chung-ae's shoulders relax when she heard it, watched Min-jun's careful mask slip into something like relief. They thought the medical team had missed the arsenic. Thought their plan was still intact, just temporarily delayed. Chung-ae played her role beautifully. "Thank God you're okay. I was so worried." She touched Ye-jun's arm with perfect concern. "We should celebrate your recovery. Maybe a private dinner? Just us and Min-jun to finalize wedding details?" Exactly what Ye-jun had wanted her to suggest. "Perfect," he said, kissing her forehead like a man who trusted completely. "For weeks until the wedding. We have so much to plan." The wire was smaller than Heather expected. Sophisticated technology embedded in the seam of her server uniform, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. "This is better than what the Korean police use," Melvina said, adjusting the microphone positioned near Heather's collar. "It'll catch everything within 20 feet. Clear audio. Can't be detected by standard security sweeps." Heather's hands were steady, but her heart raced. "If they find this, I'm dead." "They won't find it." Melvina's eyes were serious. "But if anything feels wrong, if you sense danger, you get out. Understood?" Later, in the private moment before the dinner, Ye-jun found Heather in the staff corridor. His hand cupped her face gently, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "If anything goes wrong, get out. Don't try to be a hero. Too late. I'm already involved." "Heather. If I die because of this, because of your world, then I die knowing I did something that mattered." She covered his hand with hers. Stop trying to protect me. Let me protect you for once. Something passed between them, acknowledgement of what they'd become to each other, what they were risking, what they might lose. Then Heather stepped back, became invisible again. Just a waitress in a uniform, ready to serve dinner. The private dining room occupied the Blue Dragon's top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering sprawl. The table was set for three with expensive liquor and the kind of food that signaled importance: Wagyu beef, aged whiskey, delicacies that cost more than most people earned in a month. Only 4 people in the room: Ye-jun, Chung Ae, Min-jun, and Heather serving. Daeho and loyal bodyguards were positioned nearby but not inside, per Ye-jun's instructions to make our guests comfortable. The power dynamic was perfect, they didn't even acknowledge Heather's presence. She was furniture. Background. Invisible. Which meant they talked freely. Ye-jun played his role with masterful precision. Grateful to be alive. Ready to move forward. He thanked Min-jun for managing everything during my illness. Thanked Chung Ae for being by my side through this crisis. The wedding, he said, pouring expensive scotch. For weeks is perfect. I want to make this official. Chung Ae's smile was radiant. I can't wait to be your wife. I've been thinking about my will, Ye-jun continued casually. Should update it. Make sure you're protected if anything happens to me. Heather, pouring wine, saw Chung Ae's eyes light up. Greed barely masked by concern. Darling, don't talk like that. Nothing's going to happen. Min-jun leaned forward. But it's wise to be prepared. Especially in our business. Accidents happen. True. Ye-jun swirled his scotch. I've been thinking about what made me sick. Dr. Seoa said food poisoning, but... Chung Ae's hand tightened on her glass. But what? But I'm more careful than that. I have food testers, controlled sources. It's strange. These things happen. Min-jun's voice was too casual. Stress weakens the immune system. You're right. I have been stressed. Ye-jun looked at Chung Ae. All those vitamins you've been giving me, maybe I should increase the dose? Get back to full strength faster? Heather watched them exchange a look. Panic, quickly masked. Actually, Chung Ae said carefully, maybe you should stop them for a while. Let your system reset. Ye-jun's expression remained curious. But you've always insisted they're essential. What changed? The silence stretched. Heather refilled water glasses with hands that didn't shake, playing her role perfectly. Then Ye-jun's tone shifted, still calm, but with steel underneath. Or maybe someone realized that if I keep taking them, doctors might eventually test them properly. Might find the arsenic trioxide you've been feeding me for 6 months. The room went dead silent. Min-jun's hand moved toward his concealed weapon. Boss, what are you implying? I'm not implying anything. Ye-jun's voice was ice. I'm stating, my fiancée has been poisoning me for 6 months, and my second-in-command has been helping her. Chung Ae laughed, forced, nervous. This is insane. The medication affected your mind. Ye-jun signaled. Heather placed a folder on the table, photographs spilling out like evidence at a crime scene. Chung Ae and Min-jun at hotels, intimate and unguarded. Receipts for arsenic trioxide. Test results of the vitamin pills. Financial documents showing the Chung family's failing empire and the planned takeover. I have everything, Ye-jun said quietly. The only question is, do you confess, Or do I make this very ugly? Chung Ae's beautiful face twisted with fury. You bastard. You've known? Long enough. Ye-jun glanced at Heather, still standing with the wine bottle. Thanks to someone who actually cared whether I lived or died. Min-jun stood, hand definitely moving toward his weapon now. This doesn't leave this room. My men outside will disagree. Ye-jun's voice carried absolute certainty. And they're loyal to me, not to a traitor. The door opened. Daeho and 4 bodyguards entered, weapons drawn, surrounding Min-jun with professional efficiency. Sit down, Ye-jun said. Both of you. Let's hear the truth. Chung Ae broke first. Years of perfect performance shattered like the champagne glass that had started everything. You want truth? Fine. Her voice was raw with rage. My family is dying. Our territories are gone, our income streams dried up. My father needed your empire to survive. So you decided to take it. I didn't marry you yet. That was the brilliant part, kill you during the engagement, become the grieving fiancée widow, inherit everything through the prenuptial agreements you'd already signed. Her laugh was bitter. You signed them because you trusted me. Because I played my role perfectly, cold, strategic, exactly what you expected in a business marriage. You never loved me, she continued, something like pain beneath the anger. I was just another deal to you. Why should I feel guilty about treating you the same way? Min-jun, seeing it was over, straightened in his chair with something like defiance. I've been your shadow for 8 years. The brilliant strategist everyone credits you for being, half those strategies were mine. But I'm the one who gets the glory. Exactly. And for what? A salary? Respect that's always conditional? Min-jun's eyes were hard. I wanted power. Real power. The Chung family offered me that. He laid it out, how Chung Jae-sung had approached him a year ago, offered him everything Ye-jun never would. How the affair with Chung Ae had started as strategy but became something real. She was supposed to be perfect, beautiful, strategic, emotionless. But we fell in love for real. He looked at Chung Ae with genuine affection. She's the only person in this world who sees me as more than your servant. Something flickered across Ye-jun's face. Hurt, quickly masked. I trusted you. I saw you as a brother. You saw me as useful. There's a difference. Chung Ae explained the rest, her father's orchestration, the careful poison schedule, the perfect timeline. He's old school. Believes in patience. 6 months of poisoning, perfect medical cover. Death would come shortly after the wedding. Then she looked at Heather with something complicated. Jealousy and recognition and bitter understanding. You never looked at me the way you look at her. A waitress. You give her more real emotion in 2 weeks than you gave me in 8 months. Before Ye-jun could respond, Heather spoke for the first time. Show him the other evidence, Melvina. Melvina entered with another folder. Min-jun's secret poison supply, carefully documented. Purchase dates for a different compound. Timeline showing he'd planned to kill Chung Ae 6 months after Ye-jun's death. Blame it on guilt and grief, Melvina said quietly. Absorb everything for himself. Chung Ae turned on Min-jun, horrified. You were going to kill me? You really thought I'd share power? Min-jun's voice went cold. I learned from the best. He gestured to Ye-jun. In this world, there's only room for one person at the top. It was never going to be you. They turned on each other completely. Chung Ae revealed she'd been recording their conversations, insurance against betrayal. Produced her phone with recordings of Min-jun discussing both murders. Watching them destroy each other, Ye-jun's expression carried something like sadness. This is what I built. A world where even love is just another weapon. Everything you both said has been recorded. He nodded to Heather. The wire? She revealed the recording device, played back the last 30 minutes of confession. Every word, every admission, undeniable. Chung Ae's fury turned on her. You let a servant spy on us? I let the woman who saved my life help me expose the people trying to kill me. Ye-jun's voice was firm. Her value isn't determined by her job title. He looked at Heather. Thank you. For everything. The look between them communicated everything. Gratitude, respect, something deeper. Chung Ae saw it and understood she'd lost more than just the game. Ye-jun's judgment was swift. Traditional response would have been execution, but Heather's influence showed in his choice. You'll both live. But you'll lose everything. Chung Ae would be stripped of family assets, expelled from the organization, marked as untrustworthy. In their world, a slower death sentence. Min-jun would be handed to the Chung family. Let them deal with the man who'd planned to destroy them while pretending to help. Chung Jae-sung would be informed. Political ruin. Organization collapse. The broader conspirators, Karen, Marion, Lamar, already in custody. I'm not killing you because Heather showed me there's more than one kind of justice, Ye-jun said. But make no mistake, if either of you ever comes near me or mine again, mercy ends. News of the assassination attempt spread through Seoul's underworld like fire. The Chung family's reputation was destroyed, seen as treacherous and incompetent, caught and exposed. Rival organizations circled, sensing opportunity. Ye-jun's organization divided. Traditionalists wanted bloody revenge. Modernists supported his restraint. The council meeting was tense. Seoul's major crime families gathered to discuss the situation, to assess whether Park Ye-jun was still strong or fatally weakened. He faced their questions directly. I trust loyalty over strategy. I trust someone who saved me over people planning my funeral. When asked about his unconventional mercy, Chung Jae-sung's organization will collapse without my help. His daughter and Min-jun are marked forever. They're already dead, just taking time to fall. He absorbed Chung territories peacefully as compensation, actually strengthening his position. The council accepted his approach. Unconventional, but effective. Then Mark made good on his threat. Files surfaced. Specialist Heather Roth, dishonorably discharged, wanted for questioning in a civilian death. Dae-ho brought them to Ye-jun with concern. She's a fugitive. She'll bring heat on the organization. Ye-jun read everything. The incident reports. The testimony. The court-martial proceedings. And he saw what others had missed, the Korean-American soldier's false testimony, the command's need for a scapegoat, the truth buried under political necessity. He used every connection he had. Pressure on you. Military leadership. Revelation of false testimony. Exoneration process that moved with unusual speed. When it was done, he found Heather in the club's medical office. You saved me, he said simply. Now I'm saving you. That's what partnership means. With her name cleared, the military offered reinstatement. Apology. Compensation. She could go back to everything she'd lost. Ye-jun didn't push. I can't ask you to stay in this life. You've seen what it is. Betrayal, violence, constant danger. I've also seen what it could be. Heather held his gaze. Loyalty, transformation, real purpose. I spent 6 years running from who I was. Maybe it's time I run towards something instead. She stayed. Not as a waitress, but as head of security and employee relations. Officially legitimate. Actually, his partner in everything. Over the following months, the Blue Dragon transformed. Still exclusive, still powerful, but operating differently. Heather's influence was everywhere: less violence, more strategic thinking, focus on loyalty over fear. Ye-jun legitimized businesses. The club became genuinely upscale, criminal dealings more discreet. Absorbed Chung territories became investments in real estate, technology, entertainment. Not abandoning his world, but evolving it. Some lieutenants resisted. Most adapted. Daeho eventually said what others were thinking: boss is still strong. Just smart enough to adapt. Their relationship went public. They faced resistance from every direction: Korean society uncomfortable with the interracial relationship, his world questioning a boss with a former waitress, her community worried about a black woman with a criminal. They didn't hide. Attended events together. She was acknowledged as his partner, maintaining her independence, still challenging him, still herself. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me, Ye-jun told his organization. That's not negotiable. Slowly, her competence and courage earned genuine respect. She developed employee wellness programs, medical care, fair wages, safety protocols. Protected vulnerable staff who had limited options. With Melvina's help, she transformed workplace conditions. "You're making this place actually decent," Melvina said. "That's revolutionary. If we're going to exist in this world, let's at least not make it worse." Heather finally confronted Mark in a coffee shop near Itaewon. "Your brother lied. You know that now, right?" Mark's expression was bitter but honest. "I know. But I spent years blaming you. Easier than blaming family. I understand. But I'm done carrying guilt that isn't mine." They didn't become friends. But they reached understanding. Mark eventually provided testimony that helped fully clear her name. The discharge was upgraded, her military record corrected. She didn't rejoin. That life was behind her. But closure mattered. 6 months after the poisoning, their relationship deepened beyond crisis and conspiracy. Ye-jun showed her parts of himself he'd never shared, took her to his sister's grave, talked about childhood before violence consumed everything. She shared her vulnerabilities, the weight of lives she couldn't save, the fear she'd never be enough. They built trust in quiet moments. Cooking together in his penthouse. Walking sole at night. Finding peace in each other. "I built my empire thinking power would fill the emptiness," Ye-jun said one night. "But power just made the emptiness bigger. And I ran from my past thinking distance would erase it. But you can't outrun yourself. So what do we do?" Heather smiled. "We stop running. We stop hiding. We build something real, even if it's messy and complicated." 1 year after a champagne glass shattered and changed everything, Ye-jun took Heather to the private room where he'd collapsed. "This is where you saved my life. Where everything changed." He presented a ring, not ostentatious, but meaningful. Simple platinum with small diamonds. "This isn't a strategic marriage. This isn't about territories or alliances. This is me asking if you'll build a life with me. Real life, not performance. Despite your world? Because of my world. Because you make me want to be better than what I was." Because you see the man I'm trying to become, not just the monster I've been. Heather said yes. Not to power or money. To the man. The wedding was small. Melvina officiated, ordained online for the occasion. Daeho and loyal lieutenants attended respectfully. Club staff who'd helped, Nabi, Hygiene, Jose. Heather's military friends who'd stood by her. No crime family spectacle. Just people who mattered. Their vows spoke of trust and transformation. Choosing each other daily despite impossible odds. You saved my life when you had no reason to, Ye-jun said. You gave me truth when everyone else gave me lies. You showed me that strength includes vulnerability, that power without humanity is just violence. I promise to be worthy of your faith in me. You gave me a reason to stop running, Heather responded. You showed me that people can change, that past doesn't define future. You trusted me when my own country didn't. I promise to stand with you, challenge you, and love you, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. They didn't pretend everything was perfect. Ye-jun still operated in the criminal world, some things didn't change. But he was different. More thoughtful about consequences. Protective of those under him. Actively reducing harm. Heather continued transforming the organization from within. Started a medical clinic for Seoul's underserved communities, immigrants, workers, people afraid of official hospitals. Used her knowledge and his resources to do genuine good. It was complicated. Messy. Ethically gray. But it was real. Late one night in Ye-jun's office above the Blue Dragon, they worked in comfortable silence. He reviewed security reports. She coordinated clinic supplies. Partnership in action. Daeho interrupted. Boss, we have a situation. New girl in the kitchen collapsed. Looks medical. Heather stood immediately. Where is she? As she rushed to help, still a medic at heart, Ye-jun watched her go. Melvina entered. You know people think you've gone soft, right? Let them think what they want. I'm alive because someone cared more about doing right than fitting in. She changed you. No. She showed me who I could be if I stopped choosing violence first. There's a difference. Heather returned. She'll be fine. Panic attack, overwork, dehydration. I got her stable. Ye-jun pulled her close. Still saving people. Someone has to. Especially in a world like this. They looked out over Seoul together. A Black American medic and a Korean Mafia boss, building something impossible. You know this shouldn't work, right? Us, this life, everything. Nothing worth having comes easy. Is that mob boss wisdom? That's human wisdom. Want to go home? Home sounds perfect. They left together, partners in every sense, proof that even in the darkest places, people can choose light, can choose transformation, can choose love over power. A year ago, Park Ye-jun was dying, betrayed by everyone he trusted. Heather Roth was running, hiding from a past that haunted her. A glass fell. A woman acted. Everything changed. They didn't save each other, that's too simple. They gave each other reasons to save themselves. In a world built on power and fear, they chose trust and transformation. It's not a fairy tale. It's messier, harder, more real than that. But sometimes the most unlikely people find each other at exactly the right moment. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. Subscribe to see more stories like this and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going.